Dr. Jazz.
How are you otherwise? So
Dr.
you're super busy, I guess,
Great.
right?
I'm busy. I'm busy. It's a busy time of year, as you can imagine, with the weather getting warmer slowly. And I'm just about to hit the road with John Surman tomorrow in Finland,
Woo.
um, which is just a few gigs, which will be great. But that gets busier as the year goes on, and then
Yeah.
some different stuff. I'm trying to think. Tonight I'm playing in a quite an unusual gig, which is in the Jimi Hendrix Museum in London, where he used
Oh,
to live. Um, they made a museum out of his house where he lived, because he lived in central London in a building which I think George Harrison or Paul McCartney gave to him. And now they have like a museum with all his guitars and stuff, and
wow.
some concerts in the museum. And weirdly, Handel, the composer, lived in the same building 300 years before that.
Wow.
So they have a festival there, which is like Handel and Hendrix Festival. So we're going to play half music of Handel, like the Chaconne and the Sonata, and then jump into like some Hendrix
Wow.
music,
Okay.
but in a slightly jazz mentality, but
Yeah.
still a very strange gig. I've never done something so bizarre in my life, but it's going to be fine, you know.
Oh,
It's
sure. Yeah.
E7. It's a Hendrix gig, you know.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
It will end with E7
And E
with a
minor pentatonic.
sharp
Yeah.
ninth.
Yeah, exactly.
It will end like this, that's for sure. And what about you? So you've got your family, and you've got a 1-year-old daughter, did you say?
Yeah. So I kind of play less
So you're fitting in
nowadays.
all your playing around this.
Yeah, I kind of like for the last year, I'm kind of canceled some gigs just to be home more, But I have like really nice, some nice recording and gigging with Arild Andersen, our mutual friend. And so we're
Of
doing
course, yeah, fantastic.
that in May, and so that'll be fun. But yeah, trying to be home more now with the kids. Uh,
Of course. Is it a girl or a boy?
yeah, it's a girl, so it's kind of I don't want to miss this moment in her life. It's like I think it's a nice moment. So uh, gigs will always
For
come,
sure.
right?
Before you know it, she will
Exactly,
be 18 before you know it.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. But Rob, I wanted to ask you, like you mentioned John Surman. How did you end up?
Yeah.
He's one of my heroes. Obviously, everyone's one of the main figures of European jazz. How did you end up in his group and playing with him? And I mean, I listened to the album Words Unspoken, which is amazing, the tunes and
Mm.
you're playing and everyone's playing. Like, what's the story behind there?
Well, it's a crazy story, which is that John is married to this fantastic singer, Karin Krog, who lives
Ah,
with
yeah.
him in Oslo. She's from Norway, and so John used to live in England. Obviously, he's from the west of England with this very strong accent, and he um, moved to Oslo in the 90s to live with this singer who he is together with, whose name is Karen Krog, and she had a 85th birthday concert to celebrate her 85 years birthday. And basically, I was just in Norway on another tour at that moment with a bass player called Ellen Andrea Wang and a drummer, Jon Felt, a great drummer who plays
Hmm.
with Bobo Stenson and other staff. And we were doing a tour, and we had a day off. So Ellen found this chance for us to accompany Karin for her 85 years birthday celebration in Oslo at the National Jazz Scene, the National
Hmm.
Jazz Club in Oslo. And we just played some standards and some arrangements, and we accompanied Karin, and she sang with us, and it was a beautiful celebration of her life and of course, John was there in the audience, and he had his saxophone, and he came to join us, played 2 songs, played a blues, played something at the end with us. And then, having met him a couple of times in England before that, we were having a beer after the gig. He just said, "Hey, look, let's on the back of, we keep meeting each other on these strange one-off jams, one-off celebration gigs, birthday gigs, whatever. Let's do something." And he wrote to ECM and said, "Hey, I've got this idea to put Rob with Thomas and Rob Waring, the vibes player. Let's make a recording." And ECM can be quite slow to get things happening, but on this occasion they said, "Yeah, let's do it." They booked a studio, Rainbow Studios in Oslo, and it went very quick because John's obviously 80 this year, so time is of the essence, shall we say, because he wants to keep playing for as long as possible while he is still really able to do it with his physical health is still very good. So actually he can play beautifully. So I think it's time is of the essence. So if we're going to go on the road this year, and we'll see if we play more next year or not. We'll see. See.
How was it like for you to record in the Rainbow Studio? I mean, it's like, the legendary place where, I don't know, everyone's played there. How was your experience? I mean, in general, working with ECM, I know you did albums with Elina also, and strong guitar heritage from that label.
Strong guitar heritage. And ironically, when I first met Manfred Eicher, or first or second time I met him, he came to a concert of Elina and myself in Germany, in Munich, where he lives. And he came to me in the break and he said, I don't really like guitar. I don't like guitars. And I said, well, that's interesting because a lot of my favorite albums with guitars are released on ECM Records. And he said, I guess, but that was before. I don't like guitars anymore. So interestingly, that was my first time talking to him and meeting him. But then he said, but you're good. You're good, he said, you're good. So that was about the biggest compliment I think I will ever receive from him. But it started with, I don't like guitar. And it's interesting now recording for them because they have a lot of albums, solo piano, a lot of albums with, this new series, very classical, very pure. It's a very pure label now. And as we both know, in the 70s and 80s, it was a much dirtier, avant-garde, experimental, almost rock and roll. Some of those Matheny, 80, 81, it's very crazy. Yeah. So there are some, back in time, I feel like it was much more experimental than it is now. But which makes every note that I play, I feel like I really it has to be precise, clean, really thought out, and it's become a very pure aesthetic, and I love that. I also love a lot of the new records on ECM, but it means that gone are the days of just showing up and the days of rocking out on ECM like Terje Rypdal in the 1970s or something. I feel like that era has passed, for example. So I'm conscious of the fact that on the gigs sometimes I'm able to be a little bit more free perhaps and go totally crazy and express myself to 100%, but in the studio I have to keep it maybe a little bit more like a calm river rather than a angry ocean.
Nicely put. Yeah, that's true. Like, makes sense. Yeah. No, but it's still, it's beautiful records you've done like lately, with John and obviously Elina also. And I love your playing on the label. I mean, it's these records. Beautiful stuff.
They're pure. Yeah, they're very pure, and I'm very happy to try and, it means every time I have a session booked, that I've had a session over the last few years booked with them, with ECM, I do lots of practice before, because usually I'm just on the road touring, traveling from gig to gig. Whereas if I have an ECM session, I book 1 week to practice the guitar before, because I know I'm going to have to play very precise, very pure, very clean guitar parts. So I get to practice before the session, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You mentioned before Cooper and Elina, man. Like, how did you end up playing with Elina actually, and your story with her?
I started playing with Elina in 2017 when
Already, okay.
I entered. Yeah, I didn't win it, but it doesn't exist anymore. It's called the Montreux Jazz Guitar Competition, and it was held for many years at Montreux Jazz Festival, and I was awarded the second place in 2016,
Mm.
and that was judged by the judge there was John McLaughlin, and so mainly it was just great to meet and to hang out and have a little jam with John McLaughlin. For me, that was already enough for more than a gold medal or any prize that you could hope for. To meet and hang out with John McLaughlin was brilliant. But as a part of the prize, I was given a week's worth of like a mentoring program in Switzerland a few months later. And there was also a piano competition, and there was also a vocals competition. And
Okay.
each of the first and the second prize would be part of this mentor program in Switzerland. And that meant that they had to have a guitar mentor, which was Kurt Rosenwinkel, and they had to have a piano mentor, which was a guy from Israel who lives in France, who is called Yaron Herman. And they had some percussion teachers. They had Trilok Gertu and Ziv Ravitz. And for the vocal coach, it should have been Al Jarreau, but he actually died the week before the workshop started. So they needed to find someone in Switzerland, and that's who wasn't American, who wasn't in Paris or in London. They needed to find someone domestic. So that's where Elina came into the picture, because she lives in Switzerland. And she came and joined us for the mentoring program for the vocal students. And then at the end of the week, we all did a kind of big concert. And I've been lucky. I've kept in touch since then. Of course, I've played with Elina a lot. I've kept in touch with Ziv, kept in touch with Yaron. Every time, if I see Trilok at a festival, we have a good chat, go for a coffee or whatever. So it was really a nice vibe. And Marcus Miller was there as well, playing bass. It was a fantastic experience to do like this together. So that's where I met Elina. And since then, we just started playing gigs together. And that's why we went to Koper in Slovenia very early on, as one of our first gigs actually was in Slovenia. And that was the only place I've ever been in Slovenia. I've never been to Ljubljana. I've just been to Koper twice.
Exactly, yeah. Bizarre, man. That's really like, okay. But cool, yeah. You mentioned McLaughlin.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, man. And Hendrix, and you know, who are your? I mean, what got you excited to play this music? Actually, especially improvised music. Let's say jazz. I mean, obviously there are rock influences, and there is the. You know, when I listen to you play, it's like you now you have your sound. Like especially when I listen to Dahab Days, it's. You're already like, I hear you. That's Rob, you know. But when you started, what was the main reason to get into this music?
Yeah, I guess it was like many of us. It was through a combination of, as a kid playing. Actually, as a kid, I played violin first, classical violin, and that gave me a little bit of a background into obviously what the notes are in a C major scale or in a G7th chord. I could obviously, thanks to 500 years of history or whatever it is of European classical music. But then a few years later, there are just guitars around my house, you know, because my stepfather, he plays guitar a bit, you know, in a rock band around here, and I just heard the sound of him playing guitar and decided I'd like to try it. And it was a lot more fun especially at the beginning than playing the classical violin, which I think you have to spend probably many years before you get a beautiful sound, or you get all of the benefits of the practice guitar. As we both know, with three open triads. You've got the whole of the blues under your fingers, and it's a very rewarding instrument to start with. So I quickly switched from violin to guitar, but I kept playing violin classically until in orchestras until I was about 18
Really? Oh, wow.
years old. And I did, all of the grades and played in the local youth orchestra and stuff like this. And I loved the violin, especially in the orchestra. But for the guitar, it was a bit of a calling, as it is for many young people. And I was just that generation just before the smartphones and the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Twitters and the YouTubes were there. So I was able to spend a lot of my youth just in the south of London, just in the nature, practicing the guitar or sitting around, just spending my time working on some Charlie Parker or whatever. And my stepdad has a big record collection here of where there is Mahavishnu Orchestra, and there is Frank Zappa, and there is Hendrix, and there is Extrapolation, McLaughlin with John Surman and stuff like that I just great record. So I just picked those albums up, and I was able to put them onto the vinyl and get into them pretty organically. I just loved the cover of Birds of Fire. I loved that cover. And I put it on as a kid, and that was already enough to take me down this road, this, what would you call this disease that is jazz music, that is uncurable disease. We will never be cured of it once you are infected with jazz. So I'm very happy that I had that chance, because it can be difficult, right, in this modern day to get into jazz as a kid.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice that you got, I speak about that to my students many times, like the idea of a record, an album, that you got a chance actually, to physically experience it. Now you go to Spotify or whatever, you have like, I don't know, 20 million jazz albums out there, but it doesn't say, there are no liner notes. It doesn't say who plays the bass or the drums, and it's about the package.
No credits at all.
I hate that. Man, I hate that. It's
even on Spotify, when it says they've just added song credits to Spotify, but it still doesn't tell you who's playing the bass, who's playing the guitar, who's playing the drums, who's playing which part, So I'm a big advocate for the album as well, as a package, and also as an artistic statement. It's like a painting, or it's like a book or a novel. It has a story of its own, and I know that I'm also busy in my life, but if I am really into I know when I really get into an album, because I feel that in my listening, I get stuck into try to get stuck into a whole album and hear it from the first track to the last track, and you discover the whole of that artist. You don't just discover the lead, the title track or the first track or whatever, the first three tracks. People listen to the first three tracks now. That's crazy. It's like, come on, we dedicate ourselves to make a whole record. Anyway,
that's a different story. Yeah. True. How did you, speaking of albums, what's the story behind Riser? And getting a deal with Edition Records, which has been like one of the most important labels, I think. Well, not only UK, it's actually in Europe. I mean, how did that happen for you?
That's a good label. That came because when I went to the jazz school in London, at the time when I started, Kenny Wheeler was still alive, and John Taylor was still alive, and John Abercrombie was coming across to teach a little bit, and all these guys were still alive, still playing. Norma Winston, of course, who still lives, was the vocal teacher, and I used to have one-to-one lessons with John Taylor, piano.
Really? Oh shit!
Play piano and I play guitar. So yeah, that was fantastic. And Kenny Wheeler's big band would rehearse in the jazz school that once a month, so we would really have exposure to this directly. And then sadly, Kenny died just before I graduated, and when he died, he left a lot of money in his last testament to the jazz school, and he said, I want every year to leave, however much money, to one artist, one graduate of the jazz school, to make an album. Edition Records, they collaborated with Kenny's the financial assistance from Kenny and the Royal Academy of Music where I was, to do this Kenny, we call it the Kenny Wheeler Prize. So it was a prize set up in Kenny's name with financial assistance from his last testament and his will, and Edition Records would release the album. So it was funded by Kenny, recorded by myself, and Edition Records released the album Riser.
Okay.
And then on the back of that, they were obviously a bit, they were happy with the album, and then they asked me to do a second and a third, and we shall see for the future. But it's a great label, and I've been so lucky to work with Dave and all the team there, and they're in Oxford. So it's a bit of a journey for me from southeast London to go all the way to Oxford every time I want to meet them. But I do it with pleasure because they're a good team of people, and it's important to, to keep these collaborations going, and to support to receive support from such a great label, and it means a lot to me. And Riser, that was 7 years ago.
7 years ago, yeah. You mentioned Kenny Wheeler and Abercrombie. Did you ever play with those guys also, with John or Kenny?
I never played with either of them, but I must have seen Kenny play about 50 times. I saw, especially when I was getting into jazz, he was still doing gigs in London in Ronnie Scott's club or in the Pizza Express club or the Vortex Jazz Club, and I would go and watch him with John Taylor, with Norma Winston, with I never saw him with Abercrombie, but I saw him with I never saw him play with guitar. He was always playing with piano when I saw him. John Paracelli was playing in the big band. John Paracelli was playing guitar in the big band, but I never saw him play with guitar in the live concerts. But he was just great sound, and Abercrombie too. I just saw him play concerts. I took a couple of workshops with him and met him, and I was so sad when he passed away because such a in many ways underappreciated,
very much underrated
giant of jazz guitar, really.
Very
underrated.
So,
it's crazy how these people come and they go. They just, we don't appreciate them when they're alive. That's what I want to say.
It's so important. It's so funny. Like, I mean, it's not funny, but like when you read, messages when someone passes away, and everyone's like, yeah, he was a giant, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we should tell this more often to people who are still with us, that they're good, or stuff like that, because that's show the appreciation. I think it's not done
absolutely enough. Especially journalists, especially radio DJs, especially critics. They are very quick to write an obituary saying this guy was a genius, or this guy was a giant of the European jazz sound. And at the end of the day, you think, well, when they were alive, they were living in a small house in East London, and they didn't have much to show for their giant status. So it's interesting.
When you did Riser, I mean, was it heavy for you to become a band leader? Did you feel that pressure of band leading, or was it really natural for you, or still now it is?
Oh, it's a pressure. It's an endless pressure. It's a deep pressure that I feel. It's like being deep underwater with the pressure of the water all around you in all directions. There is, you're being squeezed. Whether it's the promoter, or whether it's from the moment of asking for a concert, because you obviously, when you release an album, you have to have a tour. So the moment of asking the promoters for, can I have a concert with my quartet or my quintet or my trio? And then, of course, you get the call from the promoter. We haven't sold so many tickets. Can you help us sell some tickets? And you're like, well, I live in London and this concert is in Manchester, and I only know 3 people in Manchester. So I'm not sure how much help I can give you, but I will try. And then, of course, on the day of the concert, you want to take care of your musicians and all of this other stuff, which is nothing to do with playing the guitar in a jazz quartet, which is ultimately probably what you also love to do, and it's what I love to do. So it can be somewhat frustrating that we have to spend a lot of time dealing with the non-musical side of being a band leader.
Yeah.
To the point now where I'm still playing tracks like I played in Brighton in the jazz club on Saturday night. We have a fantastic gig, fantastic club in Brighton in the south of England, and they have a great jazz club, and we had a brilliant night. But of course, I'm still playing tunes from Riser on the gigs because I haven't even had time to write, a really convincing new set of tunes since 2017 because I'm dealing with so many other things that, I think we played, maybe only one song from the album, but still, it's interesting to note that after all these years, I still play tracks from the first album, still play tracks from the second album, and maybe only half the music we played is from the latest album. And in terms of new compositions, I haven't got anything. I've got maybe 2 or 3 pieces ready for another recording, but nothing, I haven't got a whole body of work that I'm ready to record again because I was so busy dealing with, still touring Dahab Days or, these pressures we have as a band leader.
Yeah, it's funny. Like no, it's not funny. It's terrible, actually. But yeah, that's how it is. I mean, it's bizarre.
It's crazy. It's
bizarre.
crazy. I think it's the same even if we're talking about, I was at a jazz festival in Germany last month, and I met Ron Carter. He was playing the night before us, and I was there, and I met Ron Carter, and I got the impression that even he was talking about this stuff, about selling tickets and finding concerts for his quartet. And I was thinking, wow, if Ron Carter is having the same conversation as me, then clearly I'm not alone in this fight, and it goes on for a whole lifetime.
It's true. It's people from 20 to 80. It's the same story, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
Unless you're, I don't know, I guess Pat Metheny doesn't have to worry about that, or McLaughlin, or, but...
Yeah, perhaps not Pat or John, but the rest of us mortal humans who are not immortalized gods of the guitar. Perhaps we have to deal with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, but that's all good. That's
all
life.
good. Yeah, it's all good. It's part of the deal. I mean, that's what we do. Yeah. How do you write, Rob, when you write?
Yeah. I usually write in a pretty rock and roll way, which is that I have some ideas on the guitar and I often just record them on my phone or on my dictaphone. Before I had an iPhone, I had just recording on a little device to record little snippets of ideas, 4 bars, 8 bars, 1 minute, and I would collect maybe 10 or 15 of these ideas, and then when I had a project in my mind, I would start to just take little snippets and put them together like a jigsaw puzzle, even if they were not written with the same at the same time, or they were not in a different tonality or in a different rhythmic. So they would just come together almost like a jigsaw puzzle, like a carpet that you're sewing, that you're putting together. And that's basically how I write even now. And I'm often, in a beautiful place, on the road in nature, and I might get inspired at the, 3 a.m. in the morning and get up, play a little bit, record it, and then 6 months later come back, put it together, and it's always with the guitar. I don't really compose the piano. I don't compose with keyboards or with Sibelius. I just I just use Sibelius to write the piece out at the very end.
The same.
On the manuscript paper, the same as many of us do. But I mean, ultimately, I just compose with the guitar, and it's often pretty much like that. If I've met another guitarist, a good jazz guitar player, I get in, try and always make sure I have a play with them, have a session, because that often provides huge amounts of inspiration. If you sit down and have a jam with a nice guitar player, they can show you some stuff that you maybe hadn't thought about, or because we all have our own ways and our own systems with guitar, with jazz guitar, because there's no real, it's not like classical piano or classical violin where there's a system. I guess guitar, it's you kind of find your own way, right? It's different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I love to meet other guitar players, and that often provides a lot of inspiration for me, really.
Mm,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I always had. That's why I do these talks also, and always ask
that's
this
it.
question, the composing, because just to get ideas how to compose, you know,
Yeah,
it's I don't know.
it's an endless puzzle how to compose, because there of course there are, you know, you can go and do your bachelor's in composition, but I met, you know, when I was at the jazz school, I met a lot of the composers in my in the classical side of
Mm,
the school, and they almost didn't think about music. It was all about concepts and really abstract mathematical concepts in many ways. And then on my side of the jazz school, I was there, and in the same class as me, there was Jacob Collier, the piano player, and he was like obviously had his own ways, but that seemed much more natural, like just to jump into music and make music and improvise and see what comes out. And his way of doing things seemed much more
mm,
natural to me. And there was Kit Downs was 2 years above
yeah,
me, and you know, there was all these great players around me. And on the jazz side, the way of people were composing seemed much more naturalistic than this abstract, almost mathematical way they did it in the
yeah,
classical composition department.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's because we easily can get into concepts. Then it's like, but it's all about the nice melody, right? In the end, when you listen to the greats, I don't know, Paul Motion, you know, Bill Frisell, it's like a G chord, and then he plays like a A, and I don't know, D sharp
Yeah,
over it or whatever, or like C sharp will create some tension and goes back to a G, or like it's like, man, that's so beautiful, and it's a simple
yeah, of
melody, and
course, they are masters.
yeah, and
They are both
it's
masters.
beautiful, you know.
They are masters. I love the way Paul Motion writes. I love those songbooks. Those songbooks, they are a big inspiration for me.
Me too. Yeah, yeah,
The two Motion songbooks, they're so great and they're so simple, the tunes. And I know Frizzell released a songbook, but I haven't got hold of it yet. But
oh, I have it. I have it in
I
PDF.
love how,
I can send it to you if you want.
yeah, I need to get it. I need to get that for sure.
It's amazing, man.
I need that. I need that. Hmm.
It's it's incredible when
Definitely
you
need that. I mean, I love
yeah,
the Motion Trio, and I love
yeah,
I
I know.
love the Frizzell. Yeah, the Frizzell sound is such a big part of that, and he's a great composer. So I must get that book.
Yeah. When you see the Rambler tunes and stuff with Kenny, you know, and that it's so beautiful to see the lead sheets and nice stuff. Yeah. Uh, Rob, not to take too much of your time,
Yeah,
but what are you preparing as a band leader for this year? I mean,
no worries.
Dahab Days was last year, and I mean, you said you hardly have time to compose, but still, is there something brewing or?
Yeah, of course. I'm still finalizing the idea. I've got a couple of possibilities. Of course, I'm as a band leader, I'm hitting the road with the Dahab Days project this year. We're going to be touring around the UK. We've got a few gigs in Germany. We've got a few gigs
Oh,
in
fantastic.
Netherlands. So we are starting to tour around. And uh, in terms of future band leading, I've got a few possibilities. One of which would be like something on Edition Records, a little bit more stripped back, like some solo guitars and some
Beautiful.
duo stuff, maybe with a few special guests, like maybe John Surman would join for a track, Arve Henriksen would join for a track, you know, some different, maybe do a duet with Eivind Arset, the great Norwegian guitar player, things
Yeah.
like that, you know. So like a little duos album is one opportunity to record this year and to release next year on Edition Records, and I'd love to do that. And if that doesn't come together, which I think it will, but if it doesn't, I mean, I'd love to just write a new set of music for quartet and maybe mention it to the good people in Munich at ECM Records and see if I'm, you know, slowly poking them to say, hey
Yeah, it
guys,
would be
come on.
amazing, man. Come on.
I've got a tattoo on my head that says "Give me a gig," you know, the tattoo here that says "Give me a gig." So that would be great to do something with my quartet there. But it's that's a very much in the maybe column, and the solo duo project is more in the probably column, but there's nothing in the definite column yet. But hopefully soon I will have a clearer picture. I would love to get this John Surman tour under the way, playing with John this week and getting that tour going over the next month or so, and then I'll see Manfred and see the ECM crowd a little bit more over the summer. So I'll see if they'll they'll respond to my tattoo here that says "Give me a gig."
That would be amazing. It was kind of my subtle question also, like, I mean, kind of it's leading to an ECM album, maybe. I was like hoping, okay, well, let's see if Manfred will like it.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope so. Yeah, we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. Just you have basically.
Yeah, I think so. I think.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go. You go.
No, I wanted to ask you, like, because you have a steady band basically since the Riser album, right? And how is that like for you to have basically a working band? I mean, that's amazing, right? That you know who you write for and.
That's great. That's great because you have your friends. I never thought about, booking famous jazz stars from America or from New York. I never had this problem in my mind where I thought, oh, I've got to get Joe Lovano on the next album, or I've got to get Larry Grenadier to play the bass with me, or who are musicians that I love so much. But I know that for some people it's a must to get the big names, because it's beautiful to play with big giants of to play with the giants of jazz. I've done it in a couple of times, and I love to play with these giants of our music. But I'm happy to have a band of brothers, friends, and they feel like brothers, and it's always a laugh. We get on the road together, we jump in the car, we jump on the train, we get in the plane, and we just start laughing and talking about stuff when we were a decade ago or 15 years ago, when we were playing together as kids, actually. So it's, for me, a great, it's just a pleasure every time. And I want to keep them happy and treat them as good as I can, and make sure that they are paid as well as possible, and give them as many beers and wines and food as possible, and make sure that all their hotels are as good as possible, because they're my friends first before my musical colleagues. So that means a lot to me, and it helps the music too. If you play with your friends, it helps the music.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
So
fantastic.
That's just, it's a love story. It's a love story.
Yeah. Otherwise, you mentioned the John Surman tour and going with your band to the Netherlands. Do you have any other plans of coming later in the year to close to Slovenia, Austria, or something like that? Or
playing in Austria with John Surman, but
Really?
it's more near Salzburg, in the very northwest of Austria. And there was also a possibility for my band in this festival in Salzburg called Jazz in the City.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But I'm already playing that. I'm already playing that night with my I can't remember, with something else in like some other European jazz city festival, so I was not free. But I would love to get down to Ljubljana. There's a festival there, right? A jazz festival.
Yeah. I'll send you a link and you can maybe send.
Yeah, I've heard about it. It's a famous one.
It's a big one. It's like one of the oldest in Europe, I think, even the oldest maybe. So you could try it, definitely.
Yeah,
next year.
Yeah, when I was at the jazz school with in a few years above me, there was a singer whose name is Emilia Martinson, and she was half Swedish, but she's half Slovenian.
Slovenian,
right?
yeah. Exactly, yeah.
And so she's now much more connected. She goes back a lot to Slovenia to run workshops and to play concerts, right? And her sister is also a singer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they're both in Slovenia, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%.
So.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, Ljubljana is definitely a place. I mean, in Maribor, where I live, it's not really many chances, but Ljubljana, definitely. And Graz, maybe you should try as well. Graz has a cool scene.
Yeah, Graz. Did you study in Graz?
No, I studied languages, actually, American literature and translation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm self-taught regarding jazz. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had a different path of
fantastic. 'Cause
meeting.
you've played a lot with
But
you played with Harold, right? And
yeah,
Bob Moses. I saw you did a trio project.
yeah. Now we have another Harold tour going on. It's I love Harold. You know, he's one of my heroes. Like ECM days, you know, and we did this Dr. Jazz Talks interview, and then we kind of just started talking like, oh, maybe we should play together. Yeah, let's play. I was like, shit, really? It's like, okay. Then I just same with Bob, you know, and I just booked
He's
gigs, and
great.
yeah, we got a tour together and an album, and now it's beautiful. So
Amazing.
yeah,
That's so beautiful.
yeah,
That's
he's
so
such a nice guy,
beautiful.
man. You know, as you know, so it's nice to be on the road with nice people. So
Absolutely, yeah. And
yeah,
he doesn't have a star mentality or
yeah,
persona. He's just a human being, and I love that.
yeah, yeah. And you know, it's like it was funny, like with Bob and Harold on tour. When I don't know, we had a glass of wine in the hotel, and Harold was like, "Yeah, you know, I played in '69 with Sonny Rollins with Jon Christensen." I was like, "Man, okay." And then Bob was like, "Yeah, you know, that year I was, you know, I don't know, with Mingus or something like that." I was like, "Jesus, I wasn't even an idea back then, you know." So,
That's crazy, right?
yeah, listening to those stories, yeah, it's part of the game. Beautiful to hear that. So, yeah,
Absolutely. That's part of the history. Harold is part of jazz history. He's
yeah, yeah.
such a
Oh,
wonderful musician.
definitely. Yeah, super.
Great
Oh,
composer as well.
amazing, amazing composer. We always, on every tour we did, we played, you know, a couple of tunes of mine and his music. Like, I always want to play his music. So I'm like, oh, come on, bring stuff. And it's nice just to see how he writes, and beautiful. Yeah.
I think he even did you do a tour with him and then maybe I played some of the same tunes even like 1 year ago, 2 years ago,
Yeah,
um,
probably. We played the Outhouse
like
and
a ballad,
yeah, little song, little song.
little song. Yeah, we played that same piece. Yeah, beautiful piece.
Oh, I love that piece. Beautiful music.
Yeah. He's what a great composer. So simple and
Yeah,
effective at the same
exactly.
time.
Yeah,
Powerful.
it's extremely powerful. Yeah, a beast. But cool,
Yeah.
cool.
So great.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
So yeah, but Rob, if you're gonna be around, drop me a line. You know, we can meet
Yeah,
and hang,
definitely.
and
I'll write to you.
we have
We can
a
meet and have
guest
a
room
play.
here. Yeah, we have a guest room here in our house. You're kindly invited. You can hang here, and I'll show you around. And
Oh, that's so nice.
so don't be shy to drop a line. And
I'll bring my guitar. I'll bring my guitar and we'll make some music.
yes, definitely. Cool, man. Uh, Thanks so much again for taking the time that we did it finally. So and
Awesome. I'm so happy we did it.
yeah, me too. And have fun on the road with John
Yeah.
Surman and the gang.
Nice one, Samo. Have a great day.
You too. Ciao, Rob. Ciao. Bye.